Welcome to Your Fitness Chick podcast. Become your best self. I'm a fitness coach spreading positivity to navigate you to fitness, growth, and transformation. Hey, I'm your host, Abby Smiley Krause. I am a fitness enthusiast, a huge dog lover, especially to my babies Gigi and Layla, and I am so passionate about this amazing thing that we call life. In this podcast, I'll be covering topics to improve your fitness, mindset, and well-being. Topics such as longevity, meal prepping, overcoming mindset obstacles, nutrition, and of course, everyone's favorite, weight loss. I'm here to help inspire, uplift, educate, and motivate you to become your best self. Join me here every Tuesday for a fresh episode. Welcome to the Your Fitness Chick podcast. Become your best self. I'm Abby and your fitness chick, and I'm here with another fun and awesome episode. This one's going to be a lot of fun because today I'm joined with Scott Chimuk, who I met through social media. And Mr. Chimuk is a global traveler, and he is always popping up on my Instagram in all these different countries in different gyms. And I'm thinking, I have a lot of questions about this. So I invited him to be on the podcast, and so here he is. I'm lucky enough to have him join me today. So welcome, Scott.
Good. Nice to meet you.
How are you today?
Fantastic. I'm up here in Calgary, Alberta, and so it's getting warm for us up here, which is still below freezing, and for any non-Canadian is probably quite chilly. But for
Oh
us,
my God.
for us, you'll see Calgarians walking around in short sleeve t-shirts. So there you go.
Right. You know, it's really funny. I'm from Indiana originally, but I've lived in Florida since 98. And I remember when I was in high school and when it would be like around this time of year when spring would tease us a little bit and we'd get like a 40 or 50 degree day and I would try to wear shorts to school. And my mom would be like, excuse me, no, but we wanted it. We wanted it so bad.
You're trying to will it into existence, right?
That's right. So now I'm a wimp, though. Like if I was in where you are, I would weigh probably 500 pounds and would live solely off Uber Eats and my fireplace and my fuzzy blanket and pajamas.
Fair.
But anyway, so it's lucky for you that you do get to escape the cold, obviously, in your travels, which we're going to find out about today. So tell me a little bit about your background and your bio, Scott.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm a lawyer by training, but I'm a bit of a fitness fanatic, and so I'm 43 years old, and basically through work, I get to travel all over the place. And then in addition to traveling to various different places for work, I also like to do it for fun. And so, what with computers nowadays and the ability to work remotely, that's easy. And so I've done strange things like, it's been midnight in Belgium and I'm going over Zoom and running court applications back in Canada. So, I'm wearing a suit from the neck up. That's all the
business up top, party on the bottom.
Exactly. That's all the court needs to see. So there you go.
So now what kind of lawyer are you that would allow you to travel like that?
Yeah, so litigation, and so a lot of the work travel that I do up here in Canada, we have provinces, we don't have states, but we're allowed to practice in different jurisdictions for up to, I think it's 100 days or something like that, and so we can kind of practice a little bit all over, and so there's a little bit of interjurisdictional kind of travel between the provinces. You get clients that are down east or further out west. And then in addition, even within within the province, within the state, so to speak. If I might be running a trial up north, or I might be going here or going there. And so particularly within Canada, there's a bunch of travel. And then a bunch of my clients are also international clients, right? So I've got files where I've got, clients down in Pennsylvania or New York, or I one recently from Sweden. And, and so I'm dealing with, in sort of the ever more global world that we live in, I'm kind of dealing with projects from all over the place. And so sometimes
Wow.
it's more exotic travel, and sometimes I'm just, traveling to a small town to go
In like
run
Pennsylvania somewhere. And the next day you could be in Sweden. Who knows?
Exactly. There you go.
But that's cool because that gives a lot of variety to your days and your weeks, I'm sure, just so that it's not becoming monotonous and keeps you kind of entertained with what you're doing.
100%. I like it.
I bet. I bet. So your name on Instagram is Working Out Around the World.
Yep.
So before I dive into that, how long have you been working out? You're 43, you said?
Yeah. So I've been working out ever since I've been, 16, but not always the right way.
Okay.
Right. And so I've
Sure.
been working out my whole life, but, you kind of learn when you're a kid, you kind of do whatever the big guys in the gym are doing. And,
Or you try to
or
anyway.
you try to, right. And you're lifting way too heavy, right.
Correct.
Doing partial reps, where it's
Uh-huh.
all ego all the time.
Oh,
Okay, I'm
100%.
gonna do 3 sets of 8, and of course, if you skip a day, it's always leg day.
Of course.
Never as a guy, I never skipped bicep day. I don't know why that was,
No.
but
Or chest day.
pec chest day, right? You never miss a bench day. But quads, who needs those, right?
We don't need those. We take pictures from the waist up.
100%. And so I've been, into fitness my whole life, but doing sports, outdoor activities. I'm here in the Rocky Mountains, so of course I like to ski, like to snowboard in my spare time. But then
Cool.
I started to get way more into, the science of it, and to train much more intelligently, for lack of a better word. Of
Yeah.
all things, it was over COVID that made me do it. And
Oh,
what happened is, up here in Canada, with our wonderful government that we have, which decided that the safest thing to do in a health crisis was to shut down all the gyms,
right.
right? Because of course we don't want people being healthy and going to the gym during a health crisis. Why would we
That would be
want that?
silly.
So up here, everything was shut down, and so I had sort of my routine, where I would go and I would, go to the gym, twice a week, type thing, maybe 3 days at best, but it would kind of wax and wane. And then all of a sudden, COVID comes, and all the gyms are shut down. And of course, I haven't done anything to prepare. Okay, I'm completely unprepared. I have 2 gym memberships, but I don't have anything to work out in the house.
Oh, okay.
So all I've got like a 35-pound kettlebell, and that's it. I got a kettlebell and I got a mat. That's it. And I got nothing else. And then you go to one of the fitness stores to buy equipment, and of course you can't get any equipment because all the equipment is sold out. I'm too, right away. Toilet paper and
I was getting ready to say it was right up there with
weights,
toilet paper.
right?
No dumbbells and toilet paper for you.
Right, exactly. So there's no toilet paper and there's no weights. I'm in trouble. So what I decided, I thought, oh man, I've got to get smart here, and I've got to figure out a way to stay in shape and stay healthy and do these things without a heck of a lot of equipment. And the only way to do that is I gotta figure some stuff out. And so my old, bro split ways of my old bro training ways weren't gonna cut it. I can't be just benching all the time because I don't even have a bench, and I don't have the weight. Right? So what
What
do you
did you
do?
do?
So I started doing research, and I, listening to podcasts, and, reading, and going online and reading YouTube, and just really concentrating. And what I thought was, okay, instead of using this as something that's going to set me back, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to propel me forward.
I
Right.
love it.
And the way that I do, I go, okay, I don't have a lot of weight, right? But what I can do, which I had not done previously, I'm doing my bench, and I'm lifting a lot of weight. And of course, I'm moving at 3 inches, right? It's going nowhere
But
near.
you're moving it.
Move it slightly, right? It's moving incrementally, and so I'm going. Now's a great time because I don't have the weight anyways, to go and focus on form and focus on full range of motion and do that. And so what I would do, there's a playground near my house. And so it's got, playground equipment. I thought, okay, well, I can do pull-ups on that, and I can do dips, and so what I started to do with my and kettlebell starting out, and with the playground gym facility for me, is I go, and I thought, I'm just going to go, and I'm going to go every day. I'm going to commit to an hour and a half a day, every day. And
7 days a week?
every day of the week, full body training. And I'm not doing enough weight that it's going to hurt my joints. And so what I later discovered is, okay, there's different words for this type of training. Some call it military training, some call it prison training. Okay, I call it COVID training. That's what I did. So I was trained. I go, well, they can do it in a jail. I can do it, right? And
That's
so
right.
and so I'm just doing, massive amounts of push-ups and sit-ups, and I'm playing with the weight. And then, okay, now I can get another, there's some kettlebells now. Okay, so I can get more. Oh, they've got a band, right? You're literally going in there. There's one band. You don't care what weight. I'll take it. Anything you got, I'll take it. And slowly building up my my protocol,
Your arsenal.
exactly, my arsenal. And then I get it till it's pretty good, and I'm doing that for I guess, years, a year and a half, when you look back. And then the gym started to open up. And of course I went back, and I couldn't, my range of motion was great. I couldn't go right back into the heavy weights. But what I found, and it was shocking to me, but it shouldn't have been, which is the amount of gains that I got almost immediately. It was like I wasn't a beginner, but I was getting beginner gains again. I'd be adding, 20 pounds to my bench press every week. You just be going up, and it was just because the muscle was all there, and it's just, the training and the movements. And so that's sort of what catapulted me off. And then of course, now that we have everything, and I can go back to gyms and stuff like that, I've been absolutely grateful about that. And
For sure. It makes it have more variety.
Well, 100%. Look, I can do the COVID style, but it's not my preference. It'll do in a pinch.
It started to lose its rainbowness.
Yeah,
right?
There's no rainbow
After a year. You'll
Right?
never look at playgrounds ever the same.
No, I just go, thank God, I can go back to my gym again. And so, that's it. And then I just doing everything since. And then the same thing with respect to travel is just, I've always traveled a ton. And, but of course, we couldn't travel for a while there. And then once we started traveling again, I was so excited, we can go back, we can go to the gym. This is these things you take for granted. And I go, I'm not taking this for granted anymore. This is such a wonderful opportunity that we get to do these things. And it's a wonderful opportunity that we get to travel. So why not mix them both?
There you go. Hey, I want to go back for a second, though. First of all, I want to congratulate you on how you handled the adversity of COVID, because a lot of people, including myself, instead of probably doing what I should have been doing, I was like partying and being as lazy as possible. And I gained weight. I was in a very toxic relationship and I just did not do well during COVID. And most people didn't. So I applaud you, like stand up applause that you decided, hey, let's take this setback as a setup for a comeback. And you really put yourself in. So I think that's amazing. But the question I do also want to go into before we go into the traveling bit is during this time that you were going to the playground and you were busting it with full body workouts and all that good stuff, what was your nutrition like? Had it changed at all, or were you pretty much eating the same way you had been eating prior to COVID?
No, I completely dialed in it. Well, so that's the other thing that I ended up doing, because you can't have one without the other. And historically, you know, I would think, oh well, I go to the gym and I can eat whatever I want, right? And it leads to these ups and downs that you go
Hamster
through,
wheel. Yeah.
100%, right? And as I started to get into more of the research, because I'm looking up, like what are the Russians doing? What are the Russian Olympians doing with kettlebell training and stuff? Because it's the only thing I have, right? So I got to get right into it. And then as I'm getting in and I'm diving deep on the fitness aspect, I also start doing a deep dive on the nutritional aspect. And I start thinking, well, why am I doing it on this one side, but I'm completely neglecting this other side? And I'll take something as simple as, creatine. Like when I was growing up, creatine came out, and all the guys in the wrestling team, the football team, and everybody, we thought it was steroids. You did. You thought it was, oh, he's on creatine, and you thought, and people are talking, they're cycling it, they're doing all this stuff, and it's craziness, right? And then you realize, you look at the science, and you go, creatine is actually one of the healthiest things for you from a mental cognitive perspective. There's no reason. It's 100% safe. You don't have to cycle it. You can do it all the time, every day. 5 grams. I'm a bit, taller, bigger than most. I probably take about 7 grams. You take it all the time. And the same thing with respect to protein. I always had a tub of protein powder, and I do a protein shake, but I wasn't counting my macros. And even now, I intuitively eat, but I do track my macros, and I track my protein. And I started doing that, and I
Now, do you do
started.
that with an app or do you just mentally write it down, or how do you track it?
I just do the math in my head, and I go, I got to get. So I'm 6'2",
Mhm.
225, and so I
Mhm.
go. I aim for about 200 grams of protein a day.
Great.
And if I get, most of the math is, zero point 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of body weight.
Wow.
Some do it by lean body mass. I just stick with, look, around 200 grams, I'm good. If I miss it by a little bit, it's not a big deal. If I exceed it by a little bit, it's not a big deal. I know I'm kind of in that safe space. And so but of course, 200-gram protein is a lot of protein. So
It
that's
is.
the only thing that I make an effort to do. And then what I found is that if you're hitting that protein level, that's taken up a lot of the food that you're eating, right? And
Mhm.
it's filling, and it and
Yeah.
it fills you up. And I found that I didn't really have to worry about the other stuff. So my nutrition sort of journey didn't. I don't want to say that I immediately got completely on point. I'd say now I'm pretty dialed in, but it kind of gradually started just with okay, I'm going to hit my protein. That's what I'm going to focus on. And then I started, okay, well, now I'm going to try and get whole foods. I'm going to try and eat non-processed foods as much as possible. But, I like anybody else, I've got a sweet tooth. I like, chips and salties.
Yeah.
I like all that stuff. And so
Sure.
I,
We're human.
so I start cutting down on it. And then just gradually over time, I still enjoy it here and there, but I don't really have the same cravings that I once did.
Right. I have found too that I think the cravings go away for a couple reasons. Number one, when you start to eliminate it from your nutrition plan, that obviously when your insulin doesn't have that spiking going on all the time, that really helps with the cravings. And also when you see all the hard work that you're putting in and then the gains and the changes that you're making when you look in the mirror, you think twice about, do I really want to eat that? because that's going to kind of backtrack me on my progress a little bit.
100%. I like both things that what you said are 1000% accurate for me.
Yeah.
On the one hand, like when I see something, it's in front of me, I have the thought. And my general rule of thumb is if it's healthy, I eat it. So even if I don't necessarily like the taste, if it's healthy, I'll eat it. Because I grew up, you eat what's on your plate.
Sure.
Now my
Yeah.
rule is if it's healthy, I eat what's on my plate. So if it's healthy, I'll eat it even if I don't necessarily love it, but I'll
Yeah.
get it down. If it's delicious, then even if it's unhealthy, if it's delicious and healthy, have at it. If it's delicious and unhealthy, I'll eat it, but I know what I'm doing. I'm still doing that mental math and going, okay, I got to be a little bit careful here.
Right. You just
But
adapt the rest of your day around it.
right, but if it's unhealthy and it's not even that good, you go,
Not even worth it.
I don't even really like, I don't even really love this donut. Like it's kind of okay. Then I go, why am I eating it?
Right.
I don't love it. It's not good
Yeah.
for me. What am I doing? So I'm going to cheat on the diet. I'm only going to do it for stuff that's,
Worth
that I
it.
really like. Yeah.
That's worth it. I think a lot of people struggle with it, and I have in the past with nutrition that, you get a dopamine hit when you're eating something that tastes delicious and it's sending off all these signals like a party in your sensories. And so sometimes it's a comfort that a lot of people are doing it. And a lot of people also don't recognize the fact that when they like sit down with a bag of chips
Mm-hmm.
and they're just watching Netflix, like after a while, you're not even tasting it anymore. Right.
100%.
And
It's
then
just,
you're like, oh shit, I ate that whole bag. Like, because you didn't even dial into it. So,
and you got
yeah,
to
I
know,
was,
absolutely, and you got to know that about yourself. I know about me that if I sit down with a bag of chips and I'm watching Netflix or whatever the case, I'm going to eat the whole thing. I will.
yeah,
So I don't.
yeah,
So what do I do? I just don't have it in the house,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I don't really either. Or I always say portion it out, put it in a bowl. If you're in that state where you have control, there's
Yeah.
people in my fitness programs at the beginning, like, don't even have it in the house. But eventually you want moderation. You want to have that cake. You want to have that little bit because we are human and we do crave things. And as soon as something becomes that forbidden fruit, that's when you really develop a dysfunctional relationship with food. So, we want sustainability, and sustainability is met through having some stuff in moderation, right?
100,
But when you're ready
100%.
to handle it.
100%. Well, and the other thing that happens, which you pointed to earlier, is about even how your taste changes. So now, if I'm craving something sweet, and
Mm-hmm.
people look at me like I'm a crazy man or something. But I like frozen fruit, right? So it's
Yeah.
not even ice cream, but frozen raspberries, frozen cherries. If I,
Yeah.
they're delicious. They're delicious,
Yeah.
and because I don't eat sugar, for me, that's like it as sweet as can be.
Agree.
The cake is too sweet for me. I'd rather have that. And that's this
Right.
other really cool phenomenon that happens, which is your taste starts to change and what
Yeah,
you like.
absolutely. I agree 100%. And I actually have another podcast that's coming out soon with a lady. Her name's Renee Fry, and she actually wrote a book on how to eliminate sugar from your diet. And we were talking about it yesterday, and she was just giving all kinds of really helpful tips on, you know, how to replace some of those things as you're crossing over to the other side.
Yes.
you know, so stuff to get you through, and stuff like frozen fruit and things like that can be really great because when you eliminate sugar for the most part from your nutrition, then when you taste cherries, it tastes like a party. Like, woo, what
100%.
is this flavorful thing? So I totally get what you're saying. So that's really cool. Okay, I was curious about the nutrition with you. So have you counted how many different countries you've been to, or have you not done that?
Yeah, so I've been to every now and then. I just run through the map in my head. So I think I'm at 44 countries right now.
Wow. That is amazing. That is amazing. So, obviously, the next question I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite one that you've been to so far?
It I figured that question would be coming, and that's always a tough one for me because it's sort of you kind of going. I like different things about different places. Now,
Right.
when I was younger, I lived in Japan for a year, and so
Wow. Now, where did you grow up? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
in Canada, in
You
Winnipeg.
did grow up in
Yeah,
Canada. Okay.
yeah. So in
So you lived
Canada.
in Japan.
So I've lived in England, I've lived in Japan, I've lived all over Canada, but living in Japan was that was real cool. So it will always have a soft spot in my heart for me
How
just
old
because
were
I
you?
lived there. 22.
Okay.
So I lived there when I was 22 for a year, and that was a cool experience. But then, there's all sorts of countries that are neat for different reasons. Like Burma, that was pretty amazing when I went there. At the time, it was a closed country. They were at war. The train that we were on, the rebels had bombed the train tracks. There were
Oh
all
God.
sorts of calamities and sort of, the thing when you're in your 20s, it's more exciting. Now when I'm
Yeah.
53, I'm going,
When you still
take me
think
to
you're
the,
invincible.
well, yeah, now I'm going, take me to the Mediterranean, right? That's where I'd rather go. So
Right.
I've been to a bunch of cool places, but yeah, if I was gonna, a place where I go go back, I like the to be honest with you, I like the Mediterranean in Europe. Is You can't really
Yeah.
beat it.
You can. I used to go to Europe a lot for work too, so I definitely am on the same page with you. So, I wanted to ask you, so, obviously going into gyms all over the world, there's always that cultural difference,
Yeah.
right? Obviously some stuff will stay true all across the board, but I was just wondering, do you have any a funny story about a cultural difference that you experienced?
Yeah, I mean, there's one in particular. There's some. Do you want a gym one or do you want anyone?
Give us whichever one you think is the funniest.
I mean, from a gym standpoint, some of the weird things that you get is, well, I'll talk about Japan. In Japan, you can't have tattoos because of the yakuza. And so if you've got tattoos, or at least when I was there, if you have a tattoo in a gym, you got to cover it up. So if you got tattoos, you got to strategically place towels all over your body, even in the men's change room, so because they can't see them. So I'm
Oh
covering
my
up all
god.
my tattoos, and then where I don't have a towel, of course, because my towels are covering the tats, they're not. And then but they have these little Japanese women who are just wandering around, and you're kind of stark naked, and you turn the corner, and there's a 80-year-old Japanese woman. Of course, my towels are on my tattoos, right?
Oh my god.
So the cultural
That's
differences
interesting.
can be
Now, what
pretty.
was the job of these ladies that were roaming around
They were
besides
they were
embarrassing you?
cleaning. They were cleaning, but they were just.
Oh,
I don't know if they liked it in there or not, but they were taking their time. And you got 3 or 4 women just walking around the men's change room. Of course, everybody's naked, and it is what it is.
oh my God. Well, it makes you humble and the humility kicks in, right?
Yeah,
Um, so with all your traveling, like how many days a month on average are you traveling?
that depends. I would say at least 4.
Okay.
But it's more of almost a yearly thing. Like I'd say I'm probably away 75 to 90 days a year.
Okay.
And so, yeah, fairly frequent. It just depends. Usually, if it's a work thing, that's where it can. Sometimes they can just be short little trips. Sometimes it's same day. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 days. But other times I can end up, spending a month in a place or something
Oh
like that.
wow.
Yeah, where I'm actually having to, you know, basically live out of a hotel for a month. And so my work is sort of all over the place, so that kind of depends. And then, like I said, I like to travel for fun, anyways. And so here living in Calgary, California is close, and so if it's wintertime here, taking a quick trip down to Southern California is always a good idea.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Nice. Most definitely. So what are 3 places that you have not been to yet that
yeah.
you're excited to get to?
I would say out of all the places I've been to, I've never been to Africa before, and so
Okay.
I'd like to go to South Africa. I think that would be neat. They've got kind of a cool fitness culture, and then of course also to do the safari thing and to see all the animals and whatnot. That would be neat. I'd like to get to Brazil. I
Mm,
haven't. I've been to South America, a bunch of places, but I've never been to Brazil. I think that would be cool. And then
yeah.
finally, it'd be neat to go to Australia. I think, and I'm cheating here, but I'll say I go New Zealand and Australia. I'd like to do kind of in one trip. They've
Yeah.
got some good surfing down there, and I think it would be a good time.
Well, those are definitely on my bucket list too. I've been to South Africa before.
Yeah.
I went there actually by myself when I worked. I was doing some international education, and when they were like, this was back in 2000 and I want to say 6 or 7. Anyways, they were like, yeah, we need you to go to South Africa, and I was like, did they have spas there? Because I worked in skincare.
Yeah.
So I was going over to train their distributor and their team. And I'm like, do they freaking have, because you just have this image, in your mind,
Yeah.
right? And, but it was a very cool experience. I stayed in Cape Town for a week at the base of Table Mountain.
Yeah.
And then I stayed a week in Johannesburg, but it is different, the culture for sure. And it's really neat to experience it, but they're just lovely people. And it was a really nice experience,
Awesome.
but I didn't
Yeah.
get to do a safari. I didn't get to do that.
No. Well, did you do the great white sharks?
No, I didn't. I absolutely would not want anything to do with that. I'm terrified. There's a few things that I'm really terrified of,
Yeah.
and sharks are one of them. And so sharks and alligators are right up there. And I have one of my friends on Facebook, and he's also a follower on TikTok. We follow each other, and he's a little rascal because he'll send me these like
Yeah.
super like traumatizing shark and alligator videos, and I'm like, you little. But yeah, no, I didn't get to do that. But I did go to a winery, so that
There
was
you go.
fun. That was fun. That was fun. So, with going back to working out, so when you're working out now, obviously since COVID is over, well, mostly, and we can have more access to the gyms as we've discussed, how has your routine changed now? I'm assuming now you're not doing 7 days a week.
No, but I'll do so right now. I do 6 days a week.
Okay.
And so I'm on a 3 day, I'm on a regular 3 day kind of bro split. So I do shoulders, chest, tris, and then I'll do legs, and then I do
Yeah, you're doing legs.
I'm
I'm
doing
so proud of
legs, right? Exactly. And then I'll do, back buys, traps the other day. And I do one of those sets, those 3 days, it's heavy. And then
you.
the
Okay.
other 3 days, I'll lighten it up a little bit. And then I have one active rest day where I'll go skiing or something like that. And so that's good. And I find that if I put the legs in between my upper body, it's a little bit easier for me on the joints. Hitting legs twice a week, so it's not that bad with the rest day. And then for upper body, just having that break, and then with the rest day in there as well. I find it's pretty good with respect to injury prevention.
Yeah, for sure. As you get older, I'm almost 50.
Yeah,
And, I am just, I have logged all my workouts for probably 20 years. Like I can go back and
yeah,
look 20 years ago what weight I was doing, and I make notations like if I got little sleep, whatever supplements I'm taking, if I was having any pain. But yesterday, I'm not going to lie, when I went to the gym, was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. I wrote, my joints hurt.
yeah.
Like my whole body. Like I'm training really hard right now, and I'm just like, oh, it's definite difference, from 10, 15 years ago as you age with your joints and things like that. So
100%. And all you've got to do is make that mistake once or twice, right? Which I've done, which I'm sure
mhm.
we've all done, where you're going, you know, you feel your shoulders going a little bit, and I'm just going to finish. I'm going to be tough. I'm going to finish it out, and then you can't work chest or shoulder for 2-3 months while you recover, and
Right.
you set yourself so far back when you do that. I've
Yeah.
learned I've learned sort of literally the hard way. You're better off just listening to your body, and I'm not talking about being a wimp or not, training
Oh
hard,
no.
but there's a difference between training hard and when you actually feel, okay, something's going.
Right.
Yeah.
Discomfort and pain are two different
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm the same. I was actually out a couple weeks ago with a back thing. I was down for 2 days, but it wasn't because I kept going. I just had a moment where I was like, oh shit,
Yeah.
like, up, there we go. And, you just behave. And that's the hardest part for somebody whose life really is fitness is such a big part of it. For us to not work out, it's,
That's the worst, right? And you
it is
start to,
like
you want
punishment.
100%, because then you start trying to, well, maybe if I just do this, it's not going to be so bad. You're
I
trying to
know.
scheme against it, and you got to really restrain yourself, right?
It's so hard. It's so hard. But I'm coming back. I'm going to the chiropractor regularly now, getting some massages, doing my stretches, behaving. So
Nice.
back at it. So what do you do, cardio, or do you just work mostly just with weights? Do you do circuit training? Do you do less rest time in between reps to get your heart rate up, or what do you do?
Nope. So I do typically, so I'm doing resistance training. I'm typically breaking for between a minute and a half to 2.5 minutes, depending on how heavy I'm going, whether
If
I'm
you're doing
going more
heavier, higher
for,
reps.
yeah, whether I'm going for hypertrophy or whether I'm going for strength. And like I said, that 3 of those 6 days will be more strength focused, and then 3 of those will be more hypertrophy focused. But it's still, I'm not doing anything like I'm not doing any high CNS damaging stuff. I don't do any hit training or anything like that. With working weights 6 days a week, my CNS would be fried if I
Yeah,
threw hit in.
yeah,
And so what I will do is, just depending on whether I'm kind of bulking or whether I'm going into a little bit of a cut, I try not to do anything too crazy on either side of the spectrum. But if I'm going into a bit more of a bulk, I'll up my nutrition. I'll start eating more, lifting a little bit heavier. I'll change up my supplements a little bit, and I'll cut cardio. And then when I'm going into more of a cut, that's when I'll start implementing cardio back in. Um, and then the other thing I do is I get about 10,000 steps a day of just walking, and so
sure.
that's the general routine.
Now, how often do you change your routine? Like you keep your same workout for how long?
I'm not a huge fan of of changing it. What I typically do is I'll work in a different exercise or two, or work out an exercise. And
Okay.
so within, generally speaking, like I'm going for, I think the science basically 25 to 30, it says 25, but I do more like 30, but 25 to 30 working sets
Hmm.
per muscle group per week, roughly. Um, and then what I'll do is I'll change whatever it is. So I might go more of a 2 month period where it's a little bit more incline focused, right? I might start working cable flies a little bit more into the mix if I'm talking about chest. I might add in an exercise here or an exercise there. My lower back was hurting me. So even though I like the big lifts, I go, okay, well, I'm going to take out squatting and I'm going to work in leg press instead, just to give my lower back a bit of a break because I find it easier. And so
Right.
I do more of that than,
Like
some
a
people
whole
like,
brand new
than a
program.
whole brand new program, or people who like to change it up. I know there's some science backed evidence that suggests that changing up with a greater degree of frequency is better. But at the same time, for me, I like seeing the progression with respect to my lifts. So there's kind of the dopamine hit that I get is sort of twofold. Number one, it's when you get to see the results. When you look back 6 months ago and you go, oh, I've been working on this, and oh
Oh
wow, my
yeah.
delts have really gotten better. They've really done what I've want. That's cool. That's a bit of
Yeah.
a dopamine hit. And I
Sure.
like being able to incrementally, going up in weight and just feeling stronger, or knowing that you can rep out more at the same weight. So I find if I change it up too much, you kind of don't get that.
Yeah.
But that's just that's just a me thing. That's one of those
Well,
where you go, I know what the science says, but this is what I like to do.
yeah, I mean, and you have to do what you enjoy so that you stay with it. And I
Yeah.
agree with you because I think so many people want like a new workout every day or every week, and that's not progressive,
No.
in my opinion, because I feel like you do have to find out where you're gaining. Like you have to see, how am I improving? Wow, okay, now, last month I could only do 8 reps with this weight. Now I can do 12. So now it might be time to up my weight and go back to lower reps. And, that's
Yeah.
how you get better. And you have to
Exactly.
have that margin of time to measure it.
Well, and it's like, it's in a weird, it's like going back to eighth grade science class when when you run an experiment, you don't change all of the variables. You change
Right.
one variable. So because if you change all the variables, you don't know which one it was that caused the change.
I
So
really like that analogy a lot. That's
right.
awesome.
So if
Yeah.
you're, so you might, it might be, well, I'm doing the same thing, but let's say, okay, but now I'm gonna, let's say I've been reading, okay, I might want to cycle Tonkat Ali for, to see if that will work. I'm gonna do that for 2 months. Okay, so I'm gonna take that supplement for 2 months, but then I don't want to change anything else. If I'm doing that, I don't want to change my diet really. I don't want to
Right.
change my lifting regime. I don't, because I want to be able to see,
What's
do I
effective?
positively respond to that one thing that I'm changing while keeping everything else consistent? If I'm
100%.
going and I'm doing, the weirdo exercises that, maybe it looks either cool or funny on Instagram, I guess, depending on who you ask. But if you're doing that kind of stuff, how do you know? How do you know if you're improving, and how do you know what's
Correct.
working?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So patience is the virtue, and just keep grinding. And I always say, just keep doing it. The results will come.
Yeah.
So I'm on the same mindset with you about that, with the changing of the program. So another thing I saw on your Instagram, I really wanted to ask you about is the cold plunging.
Yeah.
So a lot of people do this. I see a lot of the big, like, trending influencers, inspirational influencers, like Tony Robbins, Mel Robbins, lots of other people I can't think of right now, do the cold plunging. So is this a regular practice for you, or how often do you do this?
Yeah. So I actually I started to get into that. A bunch of the influencers do it. Uh, Joe Rogan does it. He talks about it. Andrew Huberman talks about it. I
That's
forget
what
the
I
name,
remember.
and I forget the name of the gal. I think she's out of Denmark, who did all of the. She's a PhD, did all of the research on it. Her name's
Oh, Dr. Lyons?
might be, and her and basically what she figured out is that you need to get all of the positive changes with respect to it. You need, I think it's between 12 to 14 minutes per week of cold exposure, which you can break up if you want. So you can break it up into 3 days. You can break. So when I started, I would do that because it's cold. You jump in there, right? It's and you want it to be. And all the research says you need it to be uncomfortably cold. That's sort of the whole point. And so you start off and you're 1 minute, you get me the hell out of here. But then over time, your body, of course, adapts, right? And one of the adaptive changes that you develop is, brown fat, which is, brown fat is active tissue. So it's the fat that your body burns to stay warm,
Right,
right? And it burns calories in a resting state. So
right,
your white fat is just kind of useless. It's just your emergency energy. Your brown fat actually is anabolic.
right,
It needs calories, so you increase that, and it keeps you warm, right? And so as you continually do this stuff, you're able to last a longer and a longer and a longer period of time. And so now I would say 12 to 15 minutes twice a week. I don't do it typically Monday to Friday. And that's one thing that I won't do if I'm traveling, unless I can find a place where they have it. But if I'm traveling, that's too much of an effort. And
Yeah.
frankly, I just do it in my bathtub. So
You just put ice in it.
I just fill it up with cold water. We got nice cold mountain water here that's naturally pretty cold. And then if you throw in a bunch of ice, I just freeze up. You're good to go. It gets you between 40, 50 degrees type thing. It's plenty cold. Um, it's not the super duper cold, but I'm fine with that.
Right.
And so I find it's great. I mean, it sucks when you're in it. It's
Yeah.
painful.
Yeah.
It's not fun, but it forces your mind into that meditative state where really things that you thought were hard in life, the thing that's bothering you that was going on, trust me, it's not as hard when you're sitting in a tub of freezing cold water. You're going, get me out
It
of here.
definitely isn't. Makes you a tough little cookie, right?
Right? So
It
yeah, I quite
reminds
like
me.
it.
It reminds me of David Goggins. I'm sure you know who he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love him. I think he does need to talk to Dr. Phil, but I mean, I think there's something to be said about being a badass, and I
Yeah.
think he's got some therapy needed. But anyway, I love him, and I loved his book, Can't Hurt Me. And he always talks about when you go through your challenges, your obstacles, and when you test yourself and you put yourself into these situations that obviously you don't have to,
Yeah.
right? When you're working out, when you're putting yourself in an ice bath. But those are the things that callous your mindset, right? So those are the things that prepare you so that when you are faced with life circumstances that you can't avoid and that you don't necessarily invite into your life, but are inevitable, you are better able and better equipped to handle them.
100%. You're building that resiliency. And the interesting thing about it, not to get too geeky and scientific on you, but they've actually done research, new cognitive research on what's going on in your brain with respect to resiliency. And it really is one of these use it or lose it, where your brain and therefore through your body gets better and better if you put yourself into these situations. And it's like the Navy SEALs, when
Oh,
they're going through their hell week or whatever it is. Look,
yeah.
there's no fitness benefit at all in pushing yourself that way. The way that they push them, there's no actual. It's not getting you into shape. It's not. They're breaking them down and trying to destroy them. It's about,
Right.
but they're not
Mine's
testing for who's got the best bench press coming out of it. They're testing for who's the baddest mother, coming out of it, and they're trying to build up the resiliency, so that when people
right.
are put in these tough situations, they can respond.
100%.
So
And it is true. It is true because I think that we can all agree, when you go through tough times in your life, you're going to reflect back not only to other times that you've sailed through and you've made it, and obviously you're still here,
yeah.
but you're like, if I can get through that, I can get through anything. And it just allows you to face it in a much better way than a lot of average people who just kind of curl up and hit the bottle or hit the couch or just woe is me and wait for the circumstance to take them down instead of using it as a propel forward.
Absolutely. And you think things are crappy? Go jump in some freezing cold water for 10 minutes.
All of
Right?
a sudden, your life is fabulous.
Yeah, all of a sudden you're warm. I mean, it's way better.
Because that's the cool. Plunging isn't something I've actually done, but I'm definitely intrigued by it. I want to do it, and right now I'm just like trying to find the time to shower. So
Yeah,
I definitely want to put it into my life, and I really think too that as alternative medicine and more people are understanding that if we're proactive about our health and all these new things that are on the horizon to help us do that, I think there's going to be more places opening that do this plunging, if you will.
100%. I mean,
Yeah.
there's the expression that I guess I'm stealing from Joe Rogan here, but if they could bottle it and sell it as a drug, they'd be making millions off of it.
Right.
One of the proven medical benefits of cold plunge, and I got no skin in this game, right? But one of the proven medical benefits of it is that it boosts your immune system. Like that old
Right.
narrative,
Which is
oh, don't,
huge.
if you're cold, you're going to get a cold. No, not true, not true.
Right.
It actually
Right.
builds up your white blood cells, and so you don't get sick as often.
Right.
And the endorphin spike that you get
Right.
afterwards is your dopamine is just firing off when you
Yeah.
get out of that thing. Now it's because you had to go through freezing hell to get there. But
So, if you ever can like master it and then do hot yoga,
yeah.
you could put that on your dating profile. Like, hey,
Right?
I'm a badass.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so as I was watching like a lot of your videos and going through, I stalked you a little bit on TikTok and just was trying to, because I like to research people before I have them on the show, just so that it's a good interactive show. But it seemed to me that you were promoting three things really as the trio towards pursuing fitness, and that was discipline, effort, and consistency. So I am all on board with that. But I was also thinking, what are maybe two other things that you might add to that?
Yeah, I would say, and that's intentional. I would say the those three, and you're quite perceptive. That's absolutely kind of my mottos. And the reason why I emphasize those three is because that's what it takes. People sometimes, they when they go and they have a trainer or something like that, they want the trainer to provide the motivation, or they want somebody else, or oh, I got to get in shape because I got a wedding, or I got to get in shape because I'm going to go to Mexico. I'm going to be on the beach, or whatever the heck it is, and
Right.
that's which I think is the wrong kind of mindset, because when you're relying on that external input, the fact is that some days suck. You're not going to want to go to the gym someday. Like the story that you were telling earlier, where you're going, my joints are painful.
Yeah.
Some days you go and you go, I'm on fire. This feels,
Right.
and those outnumber the bad days for
Yeah.
sure. That's why we do.
Yeah.
But you still kind of need that there, where even when you go, you know what, it's not the best workout. I'm not pushing the most. I'm not setting any PRs. I'm not getting the best workout I've ever done. In fact, I'm dialing it back a little bit today because I know I haven't slept well. I know I've been stressed
Right.
out. I've been dealing with some other stuff at work. But I'm going to do it. It's not going to be the best, but I'm just going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most important thing. Okay.
Yeah.
That being said, what the two things that I don't emphasize, probably because at least I find I don't need to. The first one is it's fun. It's a rush when you get into this mindset and you start to make these changes. Everything in your life gets better. Everything, absolutely everything. Not one thing. Not oh, you look better. You do, but that's not the reason why you feel better. You do. You have more energy. You're able to accomplish more. You're able to do sort of anything else. And there's a reason why, statistically speaking, there's more millionaires than there are people with six packs, right? Because it's harder. It's harder to be in shape,
I love that.
right? And so it's harder to actually
And
be
you
in
can't
shape.
buy it.
You can't buy it. It's earned, not given. There's a show that I watch when I'm not working out. I'm a normal person, at least a little bit, and I'm watching Game of Thrones, and there's these guys on the Game of Thrones, the Ironborn, who are kind of like the Vikings, and their expression is, did you pay the iron price? And what they mean is they respect people if they go and they've stolen the gold, not if they've gone and they've bought it. They've paid the gold price. Now, I'm not going and I'm not advocating we're going to be a bunch of Vikings stealing stuff. It's not what I'm saying.
We
But
get where you're
there's
going.
something to it, right? It's, did you pay the iron price? Is this something that, was handed to you or that you bought. No. Fitness is the one thing where you're the only person that can give that to yourself. And you have to earn it. And there's nothing else, right? There's a reason why, the Spartans back in the day would laugh at the people from Athens, the Athens people with their fancy clothes and this and that. They go, you just buy that stuff. It's meaningless. And the Spartans would be walking around naked. Look at these. I'm ripped. But it's that mentality, right? Because they've paid the iron price. They've earned it. And they've earned it through effort. And they've earned it when they didn't want to. And so that bit, there's a funness and an enjoyment that comes out of that. And then coupled with that, the other word or words that I would use would be a journey mindset. And what I mean, people say this all the time. Oh, it's about the journey. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey. I heard that. Never really hit with me. Never really resonated. Until it did. And I go, you know what? That's right. Even though I've been working out for all these years and stuff, I would have my ups and downs. And I was never just always consistent. And the reason why is because there was always some sort of end goal that I was working towards. And instead, when you throw that out the window and you go, I'm not getting in shape because I want to look good in 2 months for something. I'm just getting in shape because I like being in shape. I just like everything about it. And I'm just going to continue to do it. Mm-hmm. That is revolutionary, and it absolutely changes your mindset, or it changed my mindset. And that's kind of the way forward. And that's not to say you don't have goals. I'm very goal orientated. But you kind of have mini goals. And so, I go, okay, well, I'd really like to get that V taper in my delts. That looks cool. So that's my mini goal. Is that why I'm doing it? No, I'm just throwing something in there. Or, I'd really like to improve my, my skiing a little bit. So I want to really work on my quads and my stability there. So I'm just focused on that for a little bit. So you're still setting these mini goals.
Yeah.
But it ain't about that. That's just to keep it interesting.
Right.
It's really this journey mindset, I think, that's for me anyways, is the key.
I absolutely love everything that you said. And, I think that there's a couple things I want to go into with that is the fact that number one, a lot of people don't realize how much better they can feel. Like a lot of people who wake up every day and their joints hurt every day. My joints hurt because I'm busting my ass at the gym right now, getting ready to compete in 6 months. But some people wake up and their joints hurt because they're full of inflammation, or, they don't have the energy to play with their kids because they're so tired, because they're not eating well and they're not moving enough, or they're not getting enough sleep. And for all those single parents that are busting their ass trying to make ends meet, the utmost respect. I feel very blessed that right now in my life, kind of revolves around me and I can do what I want. And I feel very fortunate for that. So I'm just saying that a lot of people who maybe don't have the circumstances that you and I have, sometimes you have to create it. I saw this guy, he's a fitness trainer, talking on Instagram. Actually, I think it was yesterday. And I loved it because he said, a single mom who has 3 kids, no support, how can she start a program? And he was like, just start 1 minute of sit-ups every day. Then add a minute of push-ups, and you just start. But I love what you said, and how good it makes you feel and how it affects all the areas of your life. And a lot of people don't even realize that that's waiting for them on the other side if they just start. And
Start
so
and
I love that.
Exactly. Start and stick with it. It's
No
like
matter
that
what,
old
even when
movie.
you don't feel like it.
Yeah, it's like Field of Dreams, or what. If you build it, they will come. If you do it, there's a reason everybody who's really into fitness always says the same thing and knows that it's true. We've never met before in person, but I know you're going to agree with me because it's true. It's objectively true that if you stick with it and you put the time in, everybody starts with one sit up. Everybody starts with, a journey starts by one step, and you go and you put one foot in front of the other, and then you do it again and you do it again and you do it again. And that's how you accomplish it. There was a movie that came out recently with Matt Damon called, The Martian. And he's stuck on, he's in space and he gets stuck in Mars, and he's got to do all these things to try. He's got to build this house, and he's growing potatoes. He's got to do all these things to try and get rescued, right? And at the end, spoiler alert, it's a happy movie. He gets home, and they go, well, how did you do it? And he says, well, you solve a problem, and then you solve another problem, and then you solve another problem. And if you keep on solving problems, you get to come home, right? And that's what it is sort of with fitness. You go, yeah, you may not want to do it. Maybe you can't even do a sit-up. Maybe you can only do half of one to start off with. But you go and you do half a sit-up, and guess what? Go to more and do that for a week, and guess what? At the end of the week, you'll be able to do one.
Right.
And then you'll be able to do two.
Right.
And then you'll be able to do three. And then it works. It absolutely positively works. You just got to keep at her.
I love it. And nobody starts jacked.
No.
So we all started somewhere. And, I know it can be discouraging for some people, but, you just have to believe in yourself. Keep those the trios that you promote, which is discipline, effort, and consistency, and all the things you just shared. And eventually they'll get there.
Yeah.
So as we're wrapping up here, one of the questions I definitely wanted to make sure I put in today was, nutrition, it can be a challenge for busy people if you're not prepared, especially. So I can only imagine that since you travel so much, it puts a little boomerang in your nutrition. How do you stay the course? I mean, do you find it challenging when you travel to get that protein and to keep it eat clean, or what do you do, or what kind of words could you offer us?
Well, so the one thing, you're quite right. So when I travel, obviously my supplement regime kind of goes out the window. I don't take creatine because I don't want to be going into airports with baggies of white powder. I don't want to know what's going to
security.
Right. Don't know it's health supplements, right? Trust me. So I don't want to be doing that.
There, I know.
Right. And so it's that all, but I will take protein powder. Maybe I'll choose the chocolate flavor, right?
So that it doesn't look suspicious.
Right. So then you're good. So I will travel with protein powder. Now, depending on where you go, I find, and if you research where you go beforehand, it's not that hard. Like if you're in the States or you're in Canada or you're in Europe, you're generally good. If I'm going somewhere, in the middle of Asia or South America, I might do a little bit more research going in. But what I try to do is I try just to sustain my protein first and foremost. I know I'm not going to be able to track, right? Because who knows? I mean, even you go to these restaurants, even in the in the States or Canada, where they'll have the calorie count on your menu. Those things are wildly inaccurate, right? If you got Joe, who's giving you the mayonnaise on your Subway, or you got good old generous George over there, right? You could have 200 calorie difference,
Yeah.
or more, and you don't know. And even then, and a lot of them, I'm convinced are being pretty. I'm not going to say lying, but they're pretty aggressive with what they. So that's never accurate, and so you kind of got to get away from being a detailed person, and you got to go a little bit bigger picture when you're traveling, and go, okay, well, first, if you have any dietary restrictions, obviously you got to be strict about that. But assuming you don't, hit the big things. Make sure that I'm getting my protein. There's lots of different ways they can do it. Anywhere that I've ever traveled to, they've got yogurt, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese. That's even if they didn't have protein powder. Meat, I'm not a bit, they'll have that kind of stuff. Try to eat veggies and try to just stay away from processed stuff as much as you can. Or, in a pinch, if you got to do it, that's fine. It's also about not necessarily beating yourself up, especially when things can't be avoided. Yeah, you might be maybe I'm going for a business meeting or something like that, and they're taking me to whatever dinner it is. I'm gonna eat whatever is there. It'd be rude not to, right?
Right.
And maybe it's not healthy, and maybe it's absolutely something that I would normally never eat, and I'm gonna eat it, and I'm gonna say that was wonderful, even if I don't didn't want it, right? And you just got to do it, but you got to remember, you know, fall forward, don't fall backwards. So just
Yeah.
because you have a cheat meal here, or maybe it's difficult, or maybe you're not going to be totally dialed in and on point, you got to be kind to yourself, and you got to say, look, I'm doing the best I can. I'm not going to go. And what I don't endorse is the mindset of, well, I'm traveling, so now this gives me permission to just throw
Right.
everything out the window.
Yeah.
Vacation time, I can,
Yeah.
eat whatever the heck I want. Look, I don't want to do that because I feel terrible. It
Right.
doesn't make. I want to be when I'm on vacation or if I'm traveling, I want to be able to enjoy the place that I'm in, and I
Yeah.
do that by eating healthy. But if you don't have the choice, or you can't necessarily be as dialed in as you want to be, I think you just got to allow yourself that forgiveness to go, look, Rome wasn't built in a day. I've put in how many years, how many days, how many hard hours. One meal is not going to kill me,
Right.
right? And so you got to just a little bit go with the flow within reason.
100%. And it's the 80/20 rule, right?
Yeah,
If you're doing good 80% of the time. And the other thing too is if you do it the other way, where you guilt yourself for doing it, it creates shame, which creates usually negative reactions, which usually causes people to eat more bad stuff.
absolutely. You hit the nail right on the head. And this is
Yeah.
where all of the evidence is, all the science, everything supports what you're saying. From experience, it supports what you're saying. Because then you feel bad, or you do the other thing. You do the thing that I used to do, which is, you stop working out for a week. You go,
Yep.
oh, I'm feeling weak. I don't want to go to the gym, or I've been eating unhealthy. I don't
Yeah.
want it because I know that I'm not doing well. So I'm just not going to go. And you snowball the problem. And
Yes.
if you had
Been
caught it initially and just said, you know what? It's a bad week. Everybody has bad weeks. Not a big deal. Just get back on and just
there. Right.
start doing the same thing. You're fine.
Yeah.
But if you go, oh my God, woe is me. I can't believe that I did it. Now
Yeah.
I'm so embarrassed. And then it's guilt, shame, all the terrible emotions. You're going to make the problem 10 times worse.
That's so true. So you just take it, you leave it, you get back up and get back on the saddle and you keep going.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to ask you, Scott, as we're wrapping up here is what inspires you? Because as we've said a couple times throughout this hour we shared together, there's days you don't feel like it. There's things sometimes that come our way that eliminate the opportunities for us to do the things that we want to do. And sometimes it's just hard when we don't get to where we want to go as fast as we want to go. But when we're talking about inspiration, what is the first thing that comes to mind for you?
The first thing comes to mind is I haven't met anybody that doesn't like a good underdog story, right? And whenever anybody tells you that you can't do something, or that something is difficult, or that something's going to be hard, that just motivates me to want to do it more. And so the overwhelming motivator for me is that desire to keep moving forward, to keep pushing forward, and to do things that are hard. What was it, JFK, that said, we don't do things because it's easy. We do it because it's difficult,
Yeah.
right? And that's the thing that motivates me, and that's what gives you that sense of accomplishment, right? When you climb that mountain and you get up, and then you have that moment of relaxing, go, ah, oh, that was awesome. And you get that hit and you get that rush and you go, I want that again. I don't want to go back to feeling sorry for myself and feeling guilty and shameful, and I'm not motivated, and I don't want to get, and I'm depressed, or I'm not feeling that great. that is like a snowball effect on the downward stream. But when you start moving forward and you start accomplishing things, that's addictive. And look, you're going to have your pitfalls. You're going to have your days when you don't want to do it. There's going to be times where it's tough. But when you get it done, it just makes it that much better. And that's what's exciting to me. And that's why I like fitness and I like travel and I like going to new places and seeing different things. So yeah, that's what my motivator is.
I love that. I love that. Well, I have loved talking with you. I think it's been so fun. I think it's been inspirational for me, even for somebody who's already on the wagon. So it's always good to talk with like-minded people and share ideas. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to inspire our listeners.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much, you guys, for tuning into today's episode of the Your Fitness Chick podcast. As always, I'm here to inspire, uplift, educate, and motivate you to become your best self. Hey, it's Abby, your fitness chick. Thanks for checking out today's episode. With your continued support, I can keep creating inspiring episodes just like this one. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. To stay motivated all week long, be sure to follow me on all my social media platforms. The links for those can be found in the show notes. Check out my website by visiting www.yourfitnesschick.com. And I'd like to thank my production company, Coraggio Media, but most of all you, my listeners, for helping to inspire me each and every day. I'll see you on the next episode.